panelist. He has been elected to the Central Committee of the Constitutionalist Party of Iran, where he currently serving his third term. He has co-authored many articles focusing on the Islamic regime of Iran's human rights record, internal politics, and terrorist activities. His articles have been published around the globe in publications such as Wall Street Journal, in Washington Times, Jerusalem Post, Strategic Outlook, amongst others. And we are very pleased that he is able to join us. That's the picture of Mr. Shayan Arya. Our second panelist is Dr. Waiel Awwad, who is a veteran South Asia-based journalist, renowned for his writings on West Asian conflict since 1979. His professional training was as a medical doctor. He was born in Syria, trained in India. He has interviewed global leaders and holds distinguished advisory roles in international affairs and strategic affairs. As I said, he is based in New Delhi, India, and he has been an expert panelist several times on the CSA panel. And of course, this is his picture, and you shall see him. And then our third distinguished panelist is Major General Dhruv Katoch, who had an illustrious career in the Indian Army. He was the director of the clause, Center for Land Warfare's Studies. He is currently director of India Foundation, a reputed think tank. He has appeared on several media platforms, TVs, has been writing very extensively, and I'm very proud to say that he has been on the CSA platform several times. This is his picture. So now we go to the topic and the region. This shows you again the West Asia, various countries involved. And of course, that shows you the picture of Strait of Hormuz, which is now under naval blockade, some sort of. As I said, today is the 15th day of the West Asian regional war. It has now involved multiple countries, not just Iran, Israel, and the US. Number of countries in West Asia is involved. More than 1,300 Iranians have been killed, including the former supreme leader, top defense brass, 49 people in the top leadership. Strait of Hormuz is effectively blocked for oil tankers, except for few, very few. The P&I insurance clubs, protection and indemnity insurance clubs, have suspended insurance coverage for oil tankers. Brent crude prices have gone beyond $100 per barrel. United States government has decided to release 172 million barrels from US strategic petroleum reserves. At the 15th day of this war, there are questions. What is the end game here? Are we pursuing regime change? Is it possible to do regime change, or that's just a figment of imagination? Are we dealing with a prolonged war of attrition? Or are we going to witness, as end to this war, use of strategic weapons and total destruction of the Islamic regime in Iran, but as a collateral damage, total destruction, scorched earth for the nation of Iran and 92 million Iranian people? These are very, very important questions for all of us. So we will have a very lively discussion on this. Before I start inviting my panel members, there are some housekeeping rules. Please make yourself, on the mute option to avoid noise interference. Please change your cell phone setting to vibration mode. Please do not try to interrupt our esteemed panelists. Only those members of the audience who identify themselves openly will be allowed to ask questions. So no anonymous questioners, please. Please be very specific in asking questions. Questions are to be moderated through the chat room. If you write lengthy comments, most likely I'll ignore those comments and just go to the next person. So this program is being recorded, and we are also live streaming on our YouTube channel. Again, CSA is registered as a 501c3 organization with the IRS in US. We request our US based audience members to donate and support the CSA financially. The link for donation is on our website. So without further ado, I am going to invite our first panelist, that is Mr. Shayan Arya, to give his opening statement. The format is that each of the three panelists will give a 5-minute opening statement, followed by a discussion. Initially, there will be a moderated discussion, followed by a question and answers session in which we will invite questions from our audience. So, Mr. Arya, kindly unmute yourself. You're muted. And please deliver your opening statement for 5 minutes. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me. Just before I start, just one quick correction. I'm no longer with that organization that you mentioned. I'm now the president of another organization called the New Constitutionalist Party of Iran. Having said that, well, as you mentioned, it's very important. I mean, we are in a pivotal moment in West Asia's history, in my opinion, because the consequences of this war is going to be monumental in terms of not only for Iranians in general, but for the whole Persian Gulf area, for the whole other range of other countries, from Lebanon to Israel to Syria to Iraq to Afghanistan to everywhere, and the Western world in general. What we have here is that, unfortunately, for the past 47 years, 48 years, we've been having a regime in Iran that is totally in. It's not in. It's incapable. Let's put it this way: it's incapable of running a country as important as Iran. They are ideological. They are terrorists in their mindset. They are a revisionist. They want to be a revisionist power. They want to change all the dynamics within the Middle East. And they have no real care for the country or its people. They have a global outlook in terms of what they call the Muslim world. And they have been using Iran's enormous resources for their terrorist activities. And everywhere in the Middle East they have gone, they have brought nothing but death, destruction, and misery, both to the countries that they have entered and the people who live in those countries, from Lebanon to Syria to Iraq, and most importantly, to the Iranian people themselves. You mentioned that more than 1,300 people have died during this current operation, but one should not forget that less than several weeks ago, the Islamic regime in Iran, when people rose up to see if they can change this regime themselves, more than 40,000 people of Iranians all across the country were massacred by this regime. So it's very important. I mean, the outcome of this war is enormous. And the way I see it, there are only two possibilities. One is that as a result of this operation, the Islamic regime will collapse and Iran will become a normal country again. And that has enormous consequences because Iran, before this Islamic revolution, was a normal country. We had very good relations with all the Arab countries around the Persian Gulf. We had very good relations with Israel. we had friendly relations with almost every other country. Yes, there were some tensions on some, issues like normal countries had, but we were not enemies with anyone. We were not trying to undermine any of the countries around the Persian Gulf or anywhere else. And we had a good relationships based on mutual interest and benefit of all countries involved in our relations. So Iran will, if the Islamic regime collapses, the overwhelming majority of Iranians, that's what they desire. They want Iran to be a normal country. They want to have good relations with everyone, and they want their resources to be used for their own benefits, not anybody else. They don't want to support any terrorist organizations. They don't want to destroy any country from Israel to any other country. So Iran will become a normal country, and that's why Iranians are very keen to see that this regime will collapse. Because they tried, and the attitude of Iranians in general, I can tell you, towards the war, you can almost divide it between the massacre, the recent massacre, and after the recent massacre. Before the recent massacre, a huge number of Iranians, they were hoping that by rising up against this regime, they can overthrow it and avoid a war, because everybody was saying that this regime is taking Iran and is heading towards a major conflict with US or Israel or other countries. So they were hoping, most Iranians, they were hoping that by doing it themselves, they will avoid a devastating war. But after the massacre, they realized that they can't do it on their own. The attitude changed, and everybody said, you know what, we need help. And they were hoping that Israel and America will come to their aid as they promised to do so. So now the attitude has changed. Now everybody is hoping that this operation will weaken the regime to the point that then they can rise up and just change it. So that's the situation now. If this regime survives for whatever reason, the operation stops before its, final achieving its final goals of destroying this regime, or for whatever reason the regime can survive, it will be a disaster, not only for Iran and Iranians, because they will start massacring people and they will just double their efforts, quadruple their efforts to make sure that they will get that damn bomb that they are looking for and to secure their rule. And it will be a huge disaster for everyone, for everybody. And you can see that now, at the moment, these people are so irrational, the Islamic regime in Iran, they are so irrational that they are willing to destroy the entire country, the entire infrastructure of the country, the entire military of the country, the entire economy of the country, simply to remain in power. Can you imagine any country having a rulers like that are willing to destroy everything and leave 90 million people basically penniless, with no infrastructure, with no economy to talk about, with huge damage to their, military, air force, navy, whatever, what have you, simply just to remain in power. So the consequence of this operation is enormous. And the way they behaved by attacking all the Persian Gulf Arab countries, and if you think about it, all these Arab countries, before the start of the operation, majority of them, they were lobbying Washington not to do it. They were mostly on the side, they were tilting towards the side of the regime rather than the military operation against the regime. And yet, they were paid back by being attacked by the Islamic regime. So this regime is really irrational. It's a danger to us as Iranians, to the Iran as a nation, to the future of the whole peace and prosperity uh, in the West Asia region, Persian Gulf. And if you think about the importance of Persian Gulf region to the safety and security and economic prosperity of uh, the world, you will realize that this operation must not conclude with this regime stealing power. No matter what, this regime has to be destroyed and changed. Otherwise, it will be disaster for everyone, and we will be in a different uh, era, which will not be good for anyone. So that's basically my take on the current situation. I think my 5 minutes is over. I can go on if you would like.
No, thank you very much indeed, Shayan, Arya. You have articulated the feelings of the Iranian diaspora very well, and feelings of a large number of Iran civil society. So we understand that and these feelings. Let me invite our next panelist, Dr. Waiel Awwad, who is a West Asia geopolitics expert, and he comes actually from the region, from Syria. So, Dr. Waiel Awwad, kindly give your opening statements. You are based in New Delhi right now. Welcome back, sir. You've been on our platform before, so welcome.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. In fact, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay, fair. Being from the region makes you always have that conspiracy theory on your mind. But let me start by saying that neither I believe in conspiracy nor in any coincidence in the Middle East. So both are we are at the receiving end because of so many issues. But let me give you a little introspective, since Iran is included in West Asia, and we call it West Asia and India, and it is the Middle East. We call it as the British terms. However, the main issue here is that the American knew about the 1953 Mossadegh Prime Minister of Iran was elected as democratically elected, and the MI6 and also the MI5 and the CIA toppled the regime, and they brought the Shah of Iran, who has been giving them the free hand in Iran. And in fact, 91% of the Iranian oil was going to the American company and the British company. So there wasn't much of, only 9% revenue was going to the Iranian. So when the Iranian, whenever there is a national feeling among the Iranian, that was the reason for removing him. He wanted to nationalize the oil companies in Iran. Now, when the Islamic Revolution came in Iran, 1979, there was an anti-American sentiment, an anti-Israeli sentiment. And the moment the revolution took over, they have replaced the the Israeli embassy by a Palestinian embassy in Tehran. And then the rhetoric started. So when we look at the American current scenario, when the war secretary or the defense secretary executive is saying that there's a dream of the United States for the last 47 years to topple this regime, then we know that there were covert operation in Iran to topple the government of Iran, irrespective who's in power. And that's the policy. Even Netanyahu himself, the Prime Minister of Israel, said that it is his dreams for the last 40 years. So I think there are issues we need to address it in a very real state, real politics. One is that the American regime is changed by force policy, which they have started in the region, from Afghanistan to Iraq to Libya to Syria to Yemen. All these operations carried out by the United States, it was by force. And in fact, when President Trump came to power, all the Arab countries, all the world, that he's a man of peace. He criticized his predecessors for going into a regime change by force, and he thought that he will be the man of peace, and he was also keen of getting the Nobel Prize. But when he took over in the White House, we have seen the changes, and we noticed that even in his first term, the painstaking the nuclear deal 2015 signed with the P5, and he immediately revoked it because his friends Netanyahu forced him into that, and he immediately revoked, and he thought that he can bring a better deal on the table for the American people better than Obama, and he criticized the American president. Now, immediately after that, he imposed the sanctions. So the problem in Iran was started since 2006 when the sanctions were in Iran. Only they have little improvement in 2015, after which the Iranian came back and under unilateral sanction by the United States and continue till date. So it's a replica of what happened in Iraq. The same thing they have been doing in Iran. They destroyed before invasion, they destroyed the middle class of Iraq. They told us that this is a weapon of mass destruction Iraq government is doing. I was embedded with the American troops in Iraq, embedded journalist. And then we realized that there was no such thing. It was just a farce, it's a lie. Even Colin Powell, who made it, his announcement at the UN, you remember, and then he regretted because he lied to the world. So the lie is a part of the American foreign policy whenever it comes to their executing their order and gaining their objective. Even Michael Pompeo, he said that when he's the director of the CIA, he said, we keep on lying and lying, but at the end of the day, we win. So if that is the story, then we should see that the regime change policy under Trump has been implemented in Venezuela by removing the president, by hijacking the president and his wife, and bringing the opposition, taking the oil of Venezuela for the next 50 years to be extracted by American company and sold, and let the opposition take, irrespective whether it's a human rights issue, whether there is a killing, whether no killing, whatever you may name it, it doesn't matter for the United States, as long as they secure their interest. That is one of the issues. The Iranian issues, even President Trump was saying that he was misguided by his own advisor, from Kushner to Witkoff to Rubio. All of them give him the wrong advice. That even Netanyahu told him, we will remove the surgical strike, we will remove the head of the Supreme Court, Supreme leader, and then we will kill the top leader of Iran. The regime will collapse. I'm going to stress in one point here. There is no doubt that it was the largest demonstration in Iran on the economic issues since last year, because people came out in the street more than 2009, more than 2019, more than 2021. I've been following it in Iran, and I know that it was. But there is a demand. There is a genuine demand. They couldn't even address this demand. And then the war started. That is what I'm saying. The Iranian does not want any foreign intervention in their country. And when it comes to the foreign intervention in their policy and this much of attack, where the American, instead of attacking military installation, they started with civilian, and they bombarding a school, killing 165 children, students between the age of 10 and 12, and also attacking stadium, attacking water installation, then now attacking building. We have families in Iran whom we still keep talking after 2 weeks. We could only manage to speak with them twice, not even talking, only messages. They're sleeping in the bathroom. The bombing is nonstop. So if the America is bringing democracy, why they are bringing destruction? If they wanted to remove the regime, then the objective, which is declared by the United States, is not related to the actual things on the ground. What I'm trying to say here is that you may declare it's a nuclear issue as a pretext, but when you talk of the Iranian nuclear issue, then you talk of the Iranian ballistic missiles technology, then you talk about the Iranian scientists, then you talk about the Iranian oil and gas, then you talk about the Iranian regime should stop supporting any resistance forces in the region against Israel. All these things have been put on the table by the United States before even going to the discussion. And if it was the nuclear issue, then you have gone to Geneva and you said, the Omani foreign minister said there was a break through in this discussion, and the next day you go and kill the leader. That wasn't then the issue. Similar things happen in Iraq, and I remember all the stories because they made the decision of invading Iraq even 1 year before the decision was taken. And Tony Blair himself was the Prime Minister of UK when he decided to say that he is apologized to his people that he knew about the plan. So what the hell is happening here? Are we seeing really a weapon of mass deception or weapon of mass destruction? So this pretext is making the area more dangerous. The more dangerous is that we know that the United States is fighting two wars here. One is the global war. It's control of the passage or control of the oil and all the Strait of Hormuz, Bab el-Mandeb, the Red Seas, Mediterranean, Panama's, South China Sea. That is because they have an anti-China policy, and they know that it is the only rival country can compete with the United States is China. So the next level is the China. So any country friendly with China is paying the price, or any country fall at the BRI of the Xi Jinping plan is also paying the price, including my own country, Syria, including Iraq and Iran, and even Afghanistan in all these lines, which the Americans have been attacking. The most dangerous part in this war is the second one, is the regional, which is the regional for United States was not in danger. There was no any danger of the American interest. There was no chances of Iran having a nuclear capabilities, nor Iranian ballistic missile can reach the American shore. So we all understand that this war was imposed on President Trump by Netanyahu because he is fighting the Israeli war to ensure that Israeli dominance in the region, militarily, politically, and economically, will remain the same. And lastly, the most dangerous part of this war, which nobody talks about it, is you are mixing a mythological belief and with the modern technology of weapon. When you're thinking that this is a biblical idea and God sent you to this part of the world because you believe that this is the land of greater Israel from Euphrates to Nile, which including Syria, Jordan, Iraq, Lebanon, Palestine, Sinai Peninsula, 1/3 of Saudi Arabia. And when you have an American ambassador in Tel Aviv, and he's saying it openly on air, that yes, they have the right to occupy all these territories, then what we are doing here, the Middle East or the West Asia is standing at the crossroad. One path lead to confrontation with Iran, justified by the uranium enrichment framed by religious terms of a good versus evil, backed by overwhelming military power and the rights of certain divine mandate. So there is no question of negotiating with this kind of people who believe that not they only above the international law, they are not only above the human rights issues or UN Charter, they are even above God, because they believe that they've been sent by God to create these things in the region. So how do you want us to negotiate? How can we survive? And it is irrespective, trust me on this, whether it is Shah of Iran, whether it is the Khomeini, when the time comes for their philosophy or for their prophecies, then anybody in power, he will be removed. Iran objective is to disintegrate Iran, break Iran into five countries. They are trying to activate the secessionist movement, the Kurdish from one side, the Azaris minority from there, the Baluchi from the other side, the Sunni community from the other side. That is what Iranian are we hoping for? I doubt it about it. What happened in my country, what's happening in Iran and in Iraq and the rest of the region is nothing part of a sinister plot to destabilize this region, so greater Israel can be created.
Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Awwad. Very strongly held, passionate views, but also a contrarian view to what we heard earlier, and that is the idea of a panel discussion that you get opposing views because there's not one side to a problem. There are very different sides to a problem. Let me invite somebody who is not from the region, because our two panelists were from the region and there are emotional ties, ideological reasons, historical reasons. Let me invite our third panelist, who is a retired military man and a geopolitical expert, Major General Dhruv Katoch, and let's see an independent and somewhat, neutral, if I may say, neutral point of view from geopolitical perspective. So, General Katoch, sir, platform is yours. Kindly come over on the platform and unmute yourself.
Thank you, Dr. Adityanjee. It's really a pleasure to be here. It is a pleasure listening to Shayan Arya. This is the first time I've heard him, and of course to Waiel Awwad, whom I have met personally, and he's a good friend. Now, let me give my perspective, and I'm not going to. I'm going to leave the ideological content out. I just give it, the country-wise. Each country has got a different perspective. And while you said that, I'm not part of the region, unfortunately, this particular war, in my opinion, has the biggest impact on countries like India. And 6 years ago, I made a statement on the Rajya Sabha TV when we were having some problems with Pakistan. And I said, Pakistan is not the threat. China is not the threat. I said, India's biggest threat and concern is a war in the Gulf. This was 6 years ago, a war in the Gulf between the United States and Iran, which leads to the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. That is our concern. Now, leaving aside the ideology, as I said, let me just look at it, from my perspective of Iran. Now, here is a country which is 1,500 kilometers away from Israel. Frankly, I haven't understood the need for this country to have a war with Israel. I can understand the Arab concern, which I will get to later, but why Israel? But why Iran? And the only thing I could get to is that, they wanted leadership of the Islamic world. And you want leadership of the Islamic world. You're a Shia country. Most of the Arab countries are Sunni. It is their battle. So why should you actually get yourself involved into that battle? But they got involved. And I think that was the prime mistake, because they had it is not their war. But now they made it their war. They propagated the Hamas, they propagated the Hezbollah, and they continue to support them in pursuance of their objective to get mastery of the Islamic world. And there were three claimants. Iran was one, Saudi was the second, and Turkey was the third. And Pakistan, which is the only country which had the Islamic bomb and a pretty good population too, unfortunately, their economy was in the dumps. So try as they might, they couldn't really get in. Now, I personally think that the Ayatollah made a mistake. Right from February 1979, he had an opportunity to make his country great. He did not take it. He went down a different path. Billions and billions of dollars were spent on an activity which was not benefiting his people. And I think, in my personal view, had a regime change taken place in January of this year, when the disturbances took place, it would have been very good for the people of Iran. As it has not taken place, I don't think now, in this present war, the regime change is going to take place, because wars have a different impact. Once a country is attacked, all the people of the country unite for that moment. That unity is there now, regardless of the fact whether they like the Ayatollah or the new Ayatollah who has come in. They will unite, and regime change, I think, as of now, is out. Israel. Ultimately, when you go back, if you look into the Genesis, into the Old Testament and Genesis, and you look at the two sons, Isaac and Ishmael, going into two different directions, and the war starts from there. It is still a continuation of that war. And the question is, when the Israelis say that this is our homeland, Jerusalem was where we were, right from the times of, from the Bible, when they quote the Bible, but ultimately they went. There was an exodus, they left. And then the Arab came in. So whose land is it? The Jew who was there first, or the Arab who came in later? Now that question still has to be settled. It is a historical question. I mean, whether we like it or not, that ideology remains. That is one. Number two, I've had many meetings with very senior Israeli people, including one of their former ambassadors, and he made it very clear their biggest concern is Israeli nuclear weapons. And the point is that every time the Ayatollah, that is from Khomeini from 79 onwards, and Khomeini later, every time they threatened Israel with extinction. Now, that was a fact. So the ambassador's point to us was, and this is about 7-8 years ago, it's a long time back, he says, if it talks like a duck and walks like a duck and looks like a duck, for us, it is a duck. We have to take action. For us, it is existential. And that is the time I realized, for them, it is existential. If there is a ballistic missile with a nuclear warhead which hits Israel, Israel is wiped off from the face of the earth. Number two, the 7th October 23 attack, I think that was unacceptable. And when I discussed it with people and they said, no, there could be other ways of dealing with it, I gave a different sort of example. About 1,200 people were killed in that attack. Civilians, mothers, little children. Multiply that by 150, multiply that 150 times. Why I'm saying multiply that by 150 times and you come to 1 lakh something or 2 lakh something is the figure, is in population scale, because India is 150 times bigger than Israel population-wise. That would have been the impact if 1.5 lakh people of India are kidnapped and killed in a raid by the enemy. How will India react? That is exactly the proportion. And I know how India would react. We know how India reacted when 26 people were killed in Pahalgam. No country will accept that. So I can understand Israel's concerns. I can understand why they want a regime change. I can understand why they want a government in Iran which doesn't threaten them with extinction. Differences we can understand. The third point I wish to bring about, the US. The US and let me say the Western alliance, including Britain and all these people put together, now their interests are different. The US has got very clear interest to control energy and the routes of the energies. Which way the energy is moving, which is why Venezuela took place, which is why they claim to take Greenland, the Canada, as the 51st state, and then Greenland. There's a logic behind it. And now, while this may not have been the aim to control the energy, they were actually very friendly with all the Arab countries where most of the energy is being produced. But now that they have come into the Gulf militarily, then you control the energy routes here, and you control the energy routes in the Arctic, which is flowing from the north ultimately when global warming takes place. You have got control of the energy of the world. And two countries benefit ultimately in this, whatever war takes place, only two countries are going to benefit economically in the end. I'm talking about the end state. One is America. They've got the oil. They don't have to worry about what is happening. And the second is Russia. And the countries which are being impacted, you look at it, the Arab world will be finished. Iran will be finished because all the energy goes, right? And then you look at the impact, India, China, South Korea, Japan. And that is the problem. So when people are looking at it from a much wider lens, leave aside religion, leave aside ideology, leave aside the idea of democracy. These are all very nice words people use to pursue other objectives. And I think the United States objective as of now will be to ensure their hegemony in the world, that they remain the sole superpower. I don't think that's going to happen. In my view, the end of American exceptionalism has come. The start was Venezuela. This is the second rung. They will continue to be strong over the next decade, maybe 2 decades, but the decline is certain. This really heralds a decline when we look at the powers. Last, India. This war has seriously impacted us. We have got petroleum reserves, adequate reserves, I think, to last this crisis out. But there is a very serious problem of gas, especially in terms of LPG. Now, we have said very clearly, the 2 ships have come in from the Strait of Hormuz, and we are very happy about that. The net total of these 2 ships is about 85 to 90,000 tons of gas. That caters for 1 day of India's requirements. So you require 2 such ships coming every single day from wherever they are coming to meet India's requirements, which were being met so far. Yes, we can say we have increased our energy output by 30%, etc. But we need that energy flowing into India, because otherwise we can't sustain. China too is in a similar problem, and so is Japan and South Korea. Now, it is not really a question of, the energy resources going up, that, okay, it's already crossed 100, it can go to 150, maybe 200. My bigger fear is not so much the cost, it is the availability. And if the availability goes because of the Gulf War, I don't know which way that is going to go, but that is the concern. And my last point, militarily, as far as the Gulf War is concerned, and I'll finish with that. On this Gulf War, I'll just give you a few bullet points. One, I don't think Iran has the capacity to continue sustaining their missile and drone warfare at the scale they have done. They will, at any one point of time, their stocks will reduce. And if I'm in the establishment, I will say maintain a minimum of 30 to 50% reserve stocks. We don't know what's going to happen. And their ability to reproduce them has been badly degraded. In my view, their ability to continue with this war over the next week or 2 weeks will be badly degraded. That is one. Number 2, the Americans. The Americans can sustain for now. They've hit this airfield at Kharg Island, it has been hit. I beg your pardon. Yeah, they've hit the oil production facilities at Kharg Island, but they've only hit the military facilities now. That's a very smart move, because now the Iranians know that rest can be hit. I think they're in a good position to go for a bargain now to stop. I have got I'm absolutely certain. I won't say where I got the source from. If the Americans stop firing today, the Iranians will respond. They won't fire back. So I think that a deal can be struck as of now. Eid is coming up in the next 3-4 days. I think 19th or 20th is Eid, depending on when the moon is sighted. And when that takes place, I have a feeling the Americans have an opportunity to say, okay, we declare a unilateral ceasefire, and the Iranians have a chance to accept it with both sides saving face, as we call it. Will that happen? Let us see. I think wisdom dictates for both the parties that they go for it. Otherwise, there will be great disturbance. This war is not going to end. Boots on the ground is a no-no. If the boots come to the ground, my view, this war will last for years. It won't take place. The best case scenario, I feel, is you have a truce as of now. The weapons stop firing, the missiles stop firing, and perhaps the tensions will remain, but over a period of time through diplomacy, I think they can go down. And if there is peace now, I think we should give the people of Iran an opportunity to overthrow their government. A change in government can only take place by the people of Iran. They have to select whom they want. If it is imposed from outside, it will not work. So that's the way it is. The Shah of Iran, his son is there. He's the wrong man. He certainly won't be accepted to the people of Iran. And I think for the good of the people, we need a regime change. We need a regime which is installed by the people of Iran, and we need peace now. On 19th or 20th of this month, when Eid takes place, we have that chance for peace. I hope the people take it. I close here.
Thank you, General Katoch. Usually I go for moderated discussion immediately. We are running out of time, but I see several very distinguished people in our audience, and I will, invite brief comments from them looking at their professional background. So I see that Admiral Sanatan Kulshresht is there. Admiral Kulshresht, we are talking about endgame. What are your comments on this blockade, naval blockade of Strait of Hormuz? It's not just the liquefied petroleum gas and oil tankers, but it is also the commercial merchant vessels that are not able to pass. If this war prolongs, what do you think as a naval person will happen? Will US try to open the Strait of Hormuz, or the current situation will continue?
Thank you so much, Adityanjee, for having me to answer your question. Am I audible, sir?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, first, in a very broad way, what does oil and gas mean to the rest of the world? 20% of the oil and gas passes through the Hormuz. So, if 20% of gas passes through the Hormuz, 30% of this gas is used by Taiwan for its resources. Taiwan sources the other things from USA, Australia, and other things. Taiwan doesn't get gas. Taiwan doesn't get gas means your chips are at problem. There is no power. Taiwan has power only for 8 to 11 days. So that is a problem for Taiwan. Then this gas is used for producing nitrogen-based fertilizers. Half the world uses nitrogen-based fertilizers for their crops and the food security. That gets impacted directly. Now, as far as the oil is concerned, one of the byproducts is sulfuric acid, which is used for extraction of copper, nickel, cobalt, and other things. Now, that gets impacted. So, we are in a serious problem if the Hormuz gets closed. As far as the Americans trying to open and all that, it's a losing game for the Americans, because Iran has got a lot of fast boats which are very small targets, and they can really sink the ships in the Hormuz Strait. And if one or two ships get sunk, then no ships will pass through that. Both sides know it. So you can't push Iran too much on that aspect. So that is my reading of the situation as of now. Thank you.
Thank you, Admiral Kulshrestha. I also see Ambassador Pradeep Kapoor there. Ambassador Pradeep Kapoor is a member of the International Advisory Board of the CSA. Ambassador Kapoor, I have a question for you.
Thank you. Yes.
We are looking for a prolonged war. The quick collapse of regime has not happened. And essentially, we are going into a phase war of attrition with consequent changes. Do you envisage any of the parties using strategic weapons in this wider West Asian conflict?
Thank you, Dr. Adityanjee. Currently, the situation is poised at a tipping point, really. But I think both sides will refrain from using nuclear weapon or tactical nuclear weapon. I don't know whether Iran has any already, but they do have cluster bombs and dirty bombs. And US and Israel both have nuclear weapons. So I don't think the situation is tipping to that side where they will use that. But that being said, what I want to say is that what surprises me a lot is that after all the elimination of the leadership of so many people in Iran, etc., and all that has happened so far, for the new leadership again to reiterate very proudly and very loudly that Israel has no right to exist in this day and age in the modern world is very, very shocking for me. So that is the first point which the international community has to deal with. Then I also want to know from the panelists, what is the rough percentage of supporters of the current regime with Mujtaba Khamenei, and what is the percentage of people who are in the opposition to that regime, particularly from the first panelist. Secondly, what are the views of the opposition to the regime on going ahead with the nuclear program and the nuclear bomb for Iran? The next aspect is for both the other speakers from the region. Who exactly are the alternatives? If the current leadership is not good, the Shah is not good, are there alternatives? And have there been any identification or possibility of them taking over? The last point which I want to know is that, Iran is a young country. In some ways, demography is like India. Average age is very low. So it has a long way to go before it becomes a graying country. But the youth, large percentage, are radicalized, while a large percentage also opposes the regime. So about the end game, I guess it will happen very soon. It's not going to drag on too much now at this point of time for obvious reasons. But the way it'll end is by both the sides claiming victory, because both the sides have been hit quite hard. A lot of the resources have been degraded. So it's about time for either of them to say that we declare a ceasefire, and for the saying that we have attained our goals currently. And like Operation Sindoor, it may be a pause. And then the other side will immediately say that, we are victorious also.
Thank you very much indeed, Ambassador Kapoor. I'm going to bring Shayan Arya back because he was the first speaker, and we need to give him some time because there would be some, responses to what comments have been made. Shayan Arya, I have a question for you. Let's say the regime collapses. There's a very significant chatter about cartographic changes in West Asia. Significant cartographic changes in West Asia, the post-World War II colonial division of the former Ottoman Empire and the countries that were created might change as an after effect of this particular West Asian regional war. And in that process, Iran may not remain as it is. What are your viewpoints on that?
Okay, but that's a very good question. But before that, I just like to clear a few points that the
Sure.
other distinguished panelists mentioned. First of all, Dr. Mossadegh was never democratically elected. Under 1906 constitution in Iran, prime ministers were appointed and removed by the king. So Mossadegh was never democratically elected. He was a popular prime minister, but he was never democratically elected. That's one thing. Second thing, his removal had nothing to do with nationalization of oil. The late Shah of Iran was fully supportive of nationalizing the oil. In fact, the legislation that nationalized the oil was 2.5 years before his removal. He remained in power for 2.5 years after nationalizing the oil. And after his removal, that legislation was never repealed by the Shah or the consecutive, governments succeeding him. So this myth that he was democratically elected and his removal had something to do with oil, nationalizing oil, it's not really accurate per se. He was incapable of governing the country, and the economy was collapsing. And as a result, the late Shah removed him because he wasn't capable of dealing with the British, dealing with the economy, and all the other stuff. That's for one thing. Second of all, the notion that that Iran is going to be partitioned and broken, just like the Ottoman Empire, is just not there. Iran is not an artificial country. Iran has a long, long history, thousands of years. Iranians of all ethnic groups have lived together for thousands of years. And the notion that somehow it's going to break up into all kinds of things, it's not. And not only that, you look at the Middle East. Iraq didn't broke up into different countries. Syria didn't. Afghanistan didn't. Why do you think, why people think that Iran is going to happen? Iran is a full nation. We have lived together. I myself have, on my father's side, we are Kurdish. And my wife is Turkish, from Tabriz, her family. So the notion that somehow we are all these ethnic tensions, it's not really true. And it's not going to happen. I can assure you that Iran is not going to break up. It's impossible.
Thank you, Shayan. Arya. You have made your
Yeah.
opinion very clear. I want to go to, we have very little time, so I want to go to
Yeah.
the second panelist, Dr. Awwad.
May
Dr.
I
Awwad,
just say one last thing? I
okay.
mean, the notion that the Shah's son is not the right one is also millions of people called for him. In the last uprising, millions of people in more than 400 cities and towns and villages came out when he called them to come out. Millions of Iranians outside in diaspora came out in largest demonstrations ever in Munich, in Toronto, in LA, in all over, anywhere you found Iranians, the largest demonstrations in his support came. In fact, he is the only alternative that Iranians will accept after this regime because it's only natural. Iran has been a monarchy for thousands of years. This republic, this Islamic republic, is not compatible with our history, with our culture, with what people want. And the attitude of Iranian people have totally changed since before 1979. Now, the overwhelming majority of Iranians, they don't care if their oil goes to America. They have to sell it. They don't care.
Thank you, Shayan. You made your point well. I am running short of time, so I will invite Dr. Awwad. I am still stuck on the cartographic changes in West Asia. Shayan does not think that Iran may be balkanized, but do you envisage, as a result of this perpetual war in West Asia, emergence of a unified Kurdistan from the four countries that inhabit Kurdish population?
Well, I believe that the Kurdish people, unfortunately, with respect to my friend from Iran and the Kurd, that they have never been treated properly in history by any country, by anywhere in the world. They have always been cheated. They have always been promised from the USSR, the British, the Iraqis, the Iranian, the Turk. Nobody gave them their right of existence as a state. So they have always been considered as integral part of the Arab and the Iranian and the Turk, and they remain to be so because only they have been used. And in fact, I wanted to bring to your notice that the last 2 days when President Trump was have a meeting in the Oval House, and then there was lots of criticism about his going for this war. And in fact, he said, well, let's play the card of the secessionist movement by supporting the Kurdish forces, because then we will have them in power. And that's one of the cards that we can bring this regime and breaking up the regime. So I think we need to read the proper Yudid Anon treaties of the Israeli security for the 21st century, or we talk about the American strategy for the Middle East. We need to understand the American plot in this region before we decide. I am one of the person who have traveled to Iran extensively, and I have relations there, and I have been living in this part of the world. I understand the geopolitical changes. The point here I'm raising is, even some people used to tell me that if you scratch the Iranian hand, you will find American written under the skin, because they had a good relation with the United States. But nobody talks whether it is Mossadegh has, because Mossadegh was most popular leader. Even the Britain could not remove him alone. They have to use the CIA to get him removed. So if he wasn't a bad guy, if he was most popular person, whether it is the oil or no, the Iraqi oil and the Iranian oil was only by the British control, and they could only get one. Iraq used to get 2% revenue only, while Iran got 7%. So let's talk about reality on this ground, that it is not your wish list that wanted to see your country. Iran is a 9,000 years old civilization in this. It is a Persian Empire. It has been existing, and you cannot. The ignorance of President Trump of the history and the culture of Iranian dragged him into this war. I am a peace advocate. I do not support. I covered war from Jaffna to Libya. I know extensively all the war zone. Major General understand what is war is all. There is nobody right in war, and we don't know how many will be left out. So the question here is whether we can reshape the region, or whether we can survive this to reshape the region for the reshape. So this is where I'm trying to understand. When you have already wanted to implant a nuclear country, undeclared nuclear country, which is called Israel, and declared country, which is called United States, attacking a country maybe thinking in their mind to have a nuclear bomb, and you go and bomb them, and you expect us to believe you? I mean, if a president of a superpower can be cheated, then why is the superpower leadership that really I wanted to be aspired by the United States to be one of this power? Why my take on this, that this war is created for the benefit of Israel only, nothing to do with the Iranian, whether they will remain one or no. They will not let them remain one. But Iran is fighting a war of survival, and I think they will come out of this war winner if the American does not go for a dirty tactical bomb on them.
Thank you, Dr. Awwad. My last question is for our third panelist, Major General Dhruv Katoch. And taking from Dr. Awwad and what Ambassador Kapoor said, and what you said, that there's a likely possibility by March 20th or March 21st, around the time of Eid, for some sort of face-saving formula for everyone. Let's say, hypothetically speaking, that this war of attrition continues. Although Israel and United States are united in bombing Iran, is there a possibility of Israel using a tactical weapon on Iran if the war continues to go on? You are muted. You are muted. Kindly unmute yourself. Please unmute yourself. Sir, you're muted. Kindly unmute yourself.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
In my personal view, I do not think nuclear weapons will be used, because that will be, of course, it will be disastrous for Iran, but it will be disastrous for Israel and the United States too. Nuclear weapons won't be confined to that area. then the war will spread. And I think we are looking at a nuclear holocaust. In my view, I rule it out. But there's just two more points I want to give about, Kurdistan. I have met some of the people actually from the Turkish side, the Kurds from there. They had come over. I don't see any of them picking up arms and looking and fighting for an independent Kurdistan. And you'd be surprised. The reason is they don't know at what time the Americans will stop the backing. So they're not going to do it. Iran's unity and integrity, I don't think is at threat. But like Mr. Arya, when he says that there's a lot of support for the Shah. Okay, that may be the diaspora, but that is not the ground opinion in Iran. We have met so many people from there, so many people. The Shah, no. He will not be, in my view, is not going to be acceptable. He may be acceptable to the diaspora, not to the local people. They will have to find an indigenous solution. How that comes about, I mean, I don't know. I don't know the place. I mean, Mr. Awwad may be a better person to say that, but it has to be their leader. And I think at some point of time when we have been through such a lot of, such a lot of horror and killings and all that, better times will come. I'm confident. And I think that I personally, I will, if I'm a betting man, I will bet on peace coming out by the 20th of this month. That is just less than 5 days from now.
Thank you very much indeed to all three of our distinguished panelists, Mr. Shayan Arya, Dr. Waiel Awwad, and Major General Dhruv Katoch. I also thank our audience members and some of the illustrious audience members who chose to come on record and give their comments. Admiral Sanatan Kulshresht and Ambassador Pradeep Kapoor. I know some of our audience members did put some questions in the chat room, but pretty much those questions have been discussed over and over again. I just want to end this by saying that Iran is not just a nation state. Iran is a civilizational state. And that is what some of the actors are forgetting. Just like the Islamic regime cannot wipe out Israel and should not dare to use that rhetoric, similarly, the ultra-Orthodox parties in Israel should not be talking about annihilation of Iran, because by bringing out destruction on the civic polity, the population, the civilians, when you attack a desalination plant in Iran, this is a war crime. This is not affecting the Ayatollahs. Everyone wants to see the back of the Ayatollahs, but the tactics are wrong. And that is why what you are seeing, and which Major General Dhruv Katoch said, in American lingo, it is called rallying around the flag. And that is an unfortunate byproduct of this. If this external attack was not there, the lingering civic disobedience and non-cooperation and rejection of Islamic regime by brave women of Iran would have forced, in due course of time, a spontaneous uprising and regime change that was not unforeseen. Could have happened, but now the dynamics have changed, totally changed. Let's hope there is peace in the region. I also want to thank our audience members and the team CSA, Mr. Ripudaman Pachori and Mr. Rajiv Verma. These are two individuals who are my pillars of strength, who always remain on background, never show their faces on camera, but they make these kind of intellectual discussions on geopolitics and international relations possible for us at CSA to continue. We have already exceeded our time. Thank you very much indeed hopefully we should come back next month and celebrate the peace in the region and see whether there is a positive outcome. Thank you very much indeed.
Inshallah. Thank you.
Jai Hind, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.